There is a psychological phenomenon called punching down, where people in power humiliate those beneath them, not out of strength, but because of a deep, hidden fear that their power is borrowed. And history proves one thing about borrowed power: the mountain always collects its debt. The laughter hit the room like a slap. Elias Crane, owner of the Black Rock gold mine, and every soul unfortunate enough to owe him money, stood near the counter of Morrison's general store with three of his men. His belly shook as he pointed at the mountain man holding a pale blue dress up against the afternoon light. The dress was simple, cotton, small white flowers stitched along the hem, the kind a little girl might wear to church on Easter Sunday. And the man holding it had hands like the roots of an old oak, cracked, darkened, shaped by decades of living where no one told him what he was worth. His beard was long. His coat was patched with animal hide. His boots were wrapped in strips of cloth where the leather had given out. He smelled of pine smoke and the earth itself. And he stood frozen as the richest man in Copper Bluff made him a joke in front of everyone. "Look at this," Crane said, wiping tears from his eyes. "A grizzly trying to buy ribbons and lace. What's the matter, mountain man? You got a lady friend up in those hills? Or maybe you're planning to wear it yourself?" The men behind Crane laughed louder. A woman near the fabric bolts turned away, embarrassed. Harold Price, the shopkeeper, kept his eyes fixed on the counter. Silence, in towns like this, was the price of staying open. The mountain man did not speak. He looked at the dress in his hands. Then he looked at the small girl standing beside him. She was maybe 8 years old. Thin, her hair was tangled. Her coat was 2 sizes too large, and her feet sat bare inside worn-out boots stuffed with straw. She stared at the floor. Her cheeks burned red, not from the cold, but from something colder: shame. "That your daughter?" Crane asked, stepping closer. "Lord have mercy. You dragged her down from whatever cave you crawled out of just to embarrass her in public? Look at her. She looks like a stray dog someone forgot to drown." The little girl flinched. Her hand found her father's coat and gripped it tight. The mountain man's jaw tightened. His eyes lifted slowly, the way a man looks at something he could end but chooses not to. Then he set the dress down gently on the counter. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small leather pouch. He untied the drawstring and poured out a handful of gold dust. Real gold. Enough to buy 10 dresses. The store went silent in a different way now. Harold Price stared at the gold. Crane's smile flickered just for a moment, then returned, sharper than before. "Where'd you steal that?" Crane said. "You rob one of my claims? You think I don't know every ounce of gold that comes out of these mountains?" The mountain man spoke for the first time. His voice was low and rough, like stone grinding against stone. "I earned it. Every grain." "You earned it," Crane repeated, turning the words into mockery. "A man who lives like an animal earns gold. Tell me another one." The mountain man said nothing. He looked at Harold Price. "The dress. How much?" Harold swallowed hard. He glanced at Crane, then back at the gold. $2. For the girl. The mountain man meant what he said. Harold understood. He nodded quickly, wrapped the dress in brown paper, and slid it across the counter. The mountain man took it. He bent down and handed it to his daughter. She looked up at him with wide, wet eyes. She did not smile. She could not. Not here. Not with Elias Crane still watching. But something passed between them that no amount of money could ever replace: the wordless promise that her worth was not decided by this room. Crane was not finished. "You think you can walk in here and pretend you belong? This is my town, my store, my gold in these hills. You're nothing but a squatter and a thief, and that girl of yours, don't." The mountain man said it once. Quiet. Final. "Or what?" Crane smiled. "You'll growl at me?" He turned to his men. "Fetch the sheriff. Tell him we've got a thief in the store. Caught him with stolen gold." Here is where the story reveals something true about power. Power that must be enforced by borrowed authority is not strength. It is fear wearing a badge. The mountain man did not move. He placed one hand on his daughter's shoulder and stood still as stone. The little girl pressed her face into his coat. She was trembling. Minutes passed. Then the door opened. Sheriff Dene Holloway walked in, badge gleaming. He was Crane's man. Everyone knew it. Crane had bought the election 2 years back, and Holloway had been cashing favors ever since. "What's the trouble?" Holloway asked, though his eyes told the room he already knew the answer. "This man," Crane said, pointing, "is carrying gold dust. Claims he earned it. But we both know there's only one place to find gold around here. My mine. My property." Holloway looked at the mountain man, then at the girl, then at the gold. He sighed with the weariness of a man who has told himself the same lie so many times he no longer hears it. "You got papers? Proof of claim?" The mountain man shook his head slowly. "I don't need papers. I pan the rivers. I dig the high country. Land no one owns. All land belongs to someone," Crane said. "And around here, that someone is me." Holloway reached for the gold. "I'll need to confiscate this. Pending investigation." The mountain man's hand moved fast, not to strike, just to cover what was his. "That's my daughter's future you're touching." The sheriff's hand moved to his pistol. "Remove your hand, now." Silence stretched across the room like wire pulled too tight. The little girl looked up. Her voice barely found its way into the air. "Papa, please." The mountain man closed his eyes. Then he removed his hand. Holloway swept the gold into his own pouch. "You're free to go, for now, but I'd suggest you take your girl back up that mountain and stay there. Copper Bluff doesn't welcome your kind." Crane clapped the sheriff on the back. Then he turned to the mountain man with a grin that had no warmth left in it. "Run along. And next time you want to play dress-up with your little urchin, do it somewhere else." The mountain man picked up his daughter. She held the wrapped dress against her chest like something sacred. He walked toward the door. Just before he stepped outside, he stopped. He did not turn around. But his voice moved through the room like the first cold wind before a storm. "You laughed at my daughter," Crane snorted. "That I did. You'll remember this day." Crane laughed again, louder now for the room. "I already forgot it." The mountain man walked out into the cold. Snow had begun to fall. He carried his daughter down the wooden sidewalk, past the saloon, past the bank, past the church with its silent bell. People watched from windows. No one helped. No one spoke. And that silence, that willingness of ordinary people to look away from cruelty because it wasn't pointed at them, that silence is something every one of us should examine. Because indifference is not neutrality. It is a vote. That night, Elias Crane sat in his mansion on the hill above the mine. He drank whiskey by the fire and told the story again to his wife, his foreman, 2 investors from San Francisco. They all laughed. The mountain man became a punchline, a symbol of everything Crane believed himself to have risen above. But up in the high country, in a small cabin built into the rock face of a nameless peak, a little girl sat by candlelight and traced the white flowers on her dress with one fingertip. Her voice was still shaking from that afternoon. "Why do people like him get to hurt people like us?" Her father's hands moved slowly, steadily, sharpening a blade in the dark. His eyes were far away. "They don't," he said. "Not forever." She looked at him. "What are you going to do?" He set down the blade. He looked at her for a long time, at the girl who had inherited none of his silence and all of his strength. "I'm going to teach this town what a man is worth." The snow fell harder. The wind moved through the pines. And in the dark, something older than justice began to stir. Here is what psychology calls deferred reckoning. The people who are most dangerous to the powerful are not the ones who fight back immediately. They are the ones who go quiet, go home, and wait, because they understand that systems built on exploitation always carry the seeds of their own collapse. You just have to know where to plant patience. 3 weeks passed. Winter settled in. Copper Bluff returned to its rhythm of commerce and small cruelties. Elias Crane ran his mine, his men, and his town with the same iron grip. The sheriff collected his gratitude. The merchants kept their eyes down. The story of the mountain man and his ragged daughter dissolved into tavern laughter. No one expected to see him again. Then the gold stopped. It came slowly at first. A vein that had produced for months went suddenly dark. Then another. Then another. Crane sent his engineers into the deepest shafts. They found only stone. The tunnels that had glittered with promise were now damp and silent. Water seeped through the walls. Timbers groaned, and no matter how deep they dug, the mountain gave nothing back. Crane stood at the mine entrance on a frozen February morning, his breath rising in white clouds. His foreman, Jennings, stood beside him, lantern in one hand, crumpled map in the other. "It doesn't make sense," Jennings said. "We followed every survey, every marker. The gold was here. It was right here." "Then find it," Crane said. His voice pulled thin with fury. "The men are scared. They're saying the mountain turned on us." "Mountains don't turn on anyone. Men do." Crane took the map and crushed it in his fist. "Someone's been tampering. Someone's been diverting the seams. Find out who." But no one understood what was really happening because no one in Copper Bluff knew the man they had humiliated. For 23 years before Elias Crane ever set foot in this territory, Jonas Harland had lived in these peaks. He had walked every ridge, mapped every stream, traced every vein of ore that threaded through the rock like veins in a living body. He had not come to the mountains to find gold. He had come to escape a world that had taken everything from him, his wife, his home, his name. He had rebuilt himself in solitude and silence, with nothing but labor and the long patience of the wilderness. And when his daughter was born in the cabin he had built with his own hands, he had made her a vow. The cruelty of that world would not follow her here. But cruelty had followed them down the mountain that day. And now cruelty would have its education. Jonas had spent those 3 weeks doing what he had always done, moving unseen, working in darkness. He knew the water sources that fed the mine. He knew the fault lines in the stone. He knew how to redirect a stream with a few well-placed rocks. He knew how to let a timber rot just enough. He did not destroy. He did not steal. He simply allowed the mountain to reclaim what had been taken from it. And the mountain obeyed. This is something that the powerful rarely understand about the people they dismiss. Expertise does not announce itself. Competence does not wear expensive coats. And the man you laugh out of your store might understand your entire empire better than you do. By March, the San Francisco investors had gone home with empty promises. The workers began to leave. The saloon grew quiet. The general store rationed its shelves. And Elias Crane, once the undisputed king of Copper Bluff, stood in his hollow mansion with nothing but debts and the echo of his own voice. Then Jonas came back down. He walked into town on a Thursday afternoon, wearing the same patched coat, the same worn boots, but this time he came alone. His daughter stayed behind in the cabin, safe, wearing her pale blue dress with white flowers. He had told her he would be back before sunset. She believed him without question, because a man who keeps his promises builds that kind of faith. He walked into the saloon. Every head turned. The room went still. Jonas stood in the doorway, with snow still on his shoulders, and he looked at the faces around him, the shopkeeper, the blacksmith, the barber, men who had watched in silence while Crane crushed his daughter's dignity underfoot. He walked to the bar. He set a single gold coin on the counter. Whiskey. The bartender looked at the coin. He poured the drink without a word. Jonas drank slowly. Then he set the glass down and turned to face the room. "Where's Crane?" The blacksmith, a man named Dooley, spoke first. "He's at the mine." A pause. "What's left of it?" Jonas walked out. He found Elias Crane standing alone at the mine entrance. The man looked smaller now, not just in stature, but in the way that people shrink when the story they've been telling themselves stops holding together. His coat was dusty. His face was unshaved. His eyes carried the hollow look of a man who had not slept well in weeks, who kept reviewing the same memories and finding the same unanswerable question in them. Crane saw him coming. He straightened up. He tried to find the old arrogance. You did this. I don't know how, but I didn't do anything," Jonas said. "The mountain did." "Don't give me that. You poisoned my wells. You collapsed my shafts. You ruined me. I redirected a few streams. I let some timbers rot. The rest was gravity. Jonas stepped closer. You built your fortune on land you never walked, on stone you never touched. You believed that because you owned the papers, you owned the knowledge. You thought no one was strong enough to stop you, because no one had ever tried. Crane's hand moved toward his belt. There was no pistol there. He had stopped carrying one weeks ago, too, consumed by his crumbling empire to remember who he was supposed to be afraid of. Jonas did not reach for a weapon. He did not need one. You laughed at my daughter, he said. You called her a stray dog. You made her cry in front of strangers. You took her dignity and crushed it like it cost you nothing because it cost you nothing, because she was small, because I was poor, because not one person in that store would stop you. Jonas stepped closer still, close enough that Crane could smell the pine smoke, could see the scars on those hands, could see the absolute unblinking calm in those eyes. I'm not here to kill you, Jonas said. That would be too easy. I'm here to let you live with what you've become. Crane's lip trembled. What do you want from me? Nothing. You have nothing I want. But you will stand in this town and watch it forget you. You will walk past the people you once ruled, and they will look through you like glass. You will beg for work. You will sleep in barns. And every night when you close your eyes, you will remember the day you laughed at a little girl in a store. And you will ask yourself whether that was the moment your life ended. Crane's knees gave. He fell to the frozen ground. His hands pressed into the snow. His voice came out small, smaller than his daughter's had been that afternoon. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Jonas looked down at him. A long time passed. The wind moved through the mine shafts like a voice. Sorry doesn't give her back that day, he said. But maybe, if you spend the rest of your life earning it, you'll become a man worth forgiving. He did not look back. By summer, Copper Bluff was different in the way that places are different after a lie has been exposed, quieter, less certain of itself, but with more room for something honest to grow. Elias Crane had sold the mansion to cover his debts. He worked in the livery stable now, shoveling hay and mending harnesses. Some people mocked him. Most simply moved past him. But a very few, noticed something in his eyes that had not been there before. Something cracked open. Something, slowly, beginning to heal. And up in the mountains, a little girl in a pale blue dress with white flowers ran through the wildflower meadows near her cabin. Her laughter rang off the cliffs. Her father sat on the porch whittling a small wooden horse, watching her with the particular pride of a man who has kept his promises. She stopped running. She turned to face him. Papa, do you think that man ever thinks about us? Jonas looked at the sky. I think he does. Every single day. Do you hate him? He set down the knife. He looked at his daughter, healthy now, sunburned, strong, free. No, he said. I feel sorry for him. He spent his whole life building walls, and he never learned that the only thing worth building is a life someone would miss if you were gone. She walked over and leaned against him. He held her. The mountain wind was soft and warm. The world was quiet. And somewhere below, in a dusty stable, a man who had once laughed at a child was learning what it felt like to be ordinary, so that one day, perhaps, he might learn what it felt like to be real. Because this is the truth that Crane's whole life had been arranged to avoid. Power without character is not a foundation. It is a countdown. The cruelty that the strong aim downward does not disappear. It accumulates. It finds the fault lines in your empire and it waits. And the ones who love quietly, who work without witnesses, who carry their children through the cold, they are not the forgotten ones. They are the ones who shape what comes next. Every person who has ever been dismissed, laughed at, or looked through in a room of people who stayed silent, they took something from that moment. And what they chose to do with it is the story that matters. Not the laughter, not the power, not the gold. The question is not whether you will face a day like Jonas did in that store. The question is, what will you build from it?